Look at that. Yes, what I want to talk about tonight is just production work in general. I made a bunch of props and stuff versus turning them. If we have time, or if you guys want to see something, we can turn. But production work is production work, no matter what you make. My thing is I make these oil lamps. And I've been making these things for since the 90s. We're just looking at pictures here. And I've got papers from, if we can put that, I can just do this one. No, the top one. And here's an ad that from the 90s, from the gallery that I was supplying stuff to. So I've been doing these things for a long time. There's one. There's another one for Father's Day sale. I don't know if you can read that. There's one from, what was this one? 2017 from League of New Hampshire Craftsmen. Their annual thing.
Sorry.
Sounds good? Yeah. Okay. These are before digital cameras. This is how we used to do newspaper ads. Some of you might remember this kind of stuff. I had a professional photographer come out and take all this stuff. And here's me back in the old days, and this is from the early 90s till 2008 when I moved here. This was how I did it. So you can see all the blanks rather stacked up. I'm still doing the same thing some 25 years later. But I just refined the process, and that's kind of what I want to talk to you about, is how you refine the process. There's a sample getting ready. These will be going to the store tomorrow. Just finished them up today, and got to stick the labels on and get them to the store tomorrow. I supposed to get them in about a week ago, but I held up for this event tonight, so you can see kind of what I make. They're pretty much consistent. There are some differences in how I've made them over the years. Again, you can see from this picture is how I used to make them back in the 90s. There's a whole bunch of different shapes and things like that. I started doing that when I came here, but found out that the rounded bottom ones outsold the others by 3 or 4 to 1. So I just pretty much make them all round bottom. You know, they all kind of shake and shimmy a little bit when you touch them like that, and it's kind of cool. The stores here call them dancing oil lamps and stuff like that.
John, not to be rude, but what are they?
Oil lamps? It's got this little bottle in it. So you put oil in it.
Oh, okay.
It's got a lid.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't look like that from here.
It's an oil lamp holder, I guess you would call it.
From here, it looks like a wheel with a bolt coming out. So it's beautiful. Thank you.
Well, here's the shape of this. It's dark one. That's kind of too hard to see. You see, it's kind of rounded like that. And these are all derived from the calabash form. When I lived in Hawaii, that was kind of my thing. It still is today. That's my thing, is calabash with the rounded bottoms. I think all you guys that have been around for a little while have seen these. So over the years, you know, I started out with a sketch. This was 2011, it says on there, when I was designing, you know, what do you want to make for your production piece? So I come up with some different designs and things, and this one here is the one that I settled on pretty much, but I have made all these other ones, as you can see from that first picture there. In fact, step away 1 second. I've got a picture from when I first started here, from my first production run. There you go. Oh, I got lights in my way there. How come? Oh, it's two cameras, that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm getting the lights. I'm sorry about that. But can you see that? You kind of get the gist. There's all like 3-4 dozen of them on the table. And they're all different shapes and stuff. Like I said, I went to one basic shape pretty much. And in the production process, you know, you got to weed out what you're wasting your time at. You know, that's kind of where I'm going with this. If I can sell the round bottom one, that's what I'm going to make, you know. For all of you guys that do production pieces, who here does them? Jimmy, I know you make those little etuis, right? The needle holder things. Does anybody else do production work, you know, make the same thing repetitively? Ron does, yeah.
Yeah.
The only one? Okay.
Well, I try to make the potpourri bowls. When I get going on that, I usually do it.
Okay. Do you make them all the same or however it comes out?
Pretty much the same.
Yeah, okay, okay. So then you're gonna kind of understand where I'm going with all this stuff. The whole idea behind it for me is making it as efficient as you can and make it as easy as you can. I've got a bunch of jigs and stuff here that help me make these things. It just speeds up the process. And again, it helps for uniformity and stuff. I'm going to clear these out so I can start bringing the jigs out underneath our camera here, okay?
Yeah, let's just speak on. Do you ever see them? They're just.
Oh, wait, these two, yeah, these two here, I'll show you. These are my first original ones when I set up shop here in New Hampshire. You know, here's one with a rounded bottom. And here's one with a flat bottom. I think you can see that flat bottom. Just barely, yeah, because of the light. But these came from these two jigs. This is what they look like in cross section. This is probably a better way to show it. That's what this one looks like. And this one is rounded like that. I spent a lot of time and effort trying to get these curves just right, just how I want it. They're close to 5, but not quite. The reason for that is it's basically the wood. When I make these things, I use blanks that are all pre-cut and dried. I make them 5 1/4 diameter by 2.5 inches thick. The reason for 2.5 inches is because how I mount them. I don't use a chuck, I use waste blocks. And the reason for that is because I have much better access and stuff to the bottom, and I don't have to mess around with, you know, making the chucks and all that kind of stuff. So it gives me plenty of room to turn these things down.
You say these are jigs. How do you use those?
Well, the only thing I use these things for now is get a given piece of wood, right? And see if it fits, kind of thing, you know? I use those. I use those, and I use these as well. Okay, so this right here is going to be the size of a blank. You can see that. Okay. And this one is the size there. This makes for uniformity. And I don't got to measure. I don't got to set anything up. I put a compass with the point in that hole. Put the pin on the outside of this rim and go. So every one of them is the same. And it just makes it easy when you're setting up. And as you're getting into the process, you know, you see all these lines, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But it just makes it easier. If everything's the same every time, it speeds up the process and makes for efficiency. And that's what it's all about when you're doing this stuff. There was a time, yes.
John, you're using a 1/4 inch blade on your bandsaw?
It's 3/8.
3/8. Okay.
3/8. I think it's 3 teeth per
Oh,
inch.
sorry.
Say again?
Yeah, it just I looked small radius
It's
for a
just a
1/2 inch
spot.
blade.
Everything's
Yeah,
so-
it's a 3/8. I think it's 3 hook tooth, I think it is.
Yeah.
But, you know, back to my point is, you know, I'm looking for the same shape every time. And to me, this is a very appealing shape and they seem to sell well over the many years I've been making them. And that's kind of why I stick to it. I have done others in the past, a little bit smaller designs like this. And I mean, they're okay, but I prefer this. This is still my favorite. And you say I use these for, you know, just fit it on a piece of wood. When I'm cutting up wood, should have, nah, that's too much. That's way too much cutting wood. But it makes it easy to lay it out, and you can see all the defects that are in the wood with this clear thing here, and you can avoid the defects. You can also balance the grain because of the hole in the very center. So you get it also, everything's even. And if you look at this one, the grain is all even side to side, right? That's not by accident. When I'm cutting wood too, I always try and get the best piece I can out of the given wood. I'm not looking for the most. I'm always going for the best. I always try to balance the grain, avoid the defects. Some of the props that I have here tonight, they all had bug holes in them. Oh, I spent time this afternoon filling bug holes. I don't like that look, you know? I figured I'd plug them because this is some pretty fancy wood. When you oil it, it really pops. But they're not going to make it to the store. They're a little bit too rustic for my taste. And that's a personal thing. Some people like, you know, bug holes and knots and all that kind of thing. It's not me, though. So, all that done, talked about sketches. So if you guys are doing or going to consider doing production work, think about what you want to make and then think about the easiest way to do it. I wish a few of you could. Okay, Ron, you said you do production work. What do you make?
Shot glasses, spatulas, toaster tongs, honey dipper jars.
A bunch of stuff.
You know, my card says wooden bowls and more. Well, it's the more that sells.
Right. The little tchotchke stuff, that's pretty good.
You know?
That's what built this shop here, is the tchotchke stuff. I was telling Tom that before, you know? Sell an awful lot of it. I mean, you know, $400 bowls are nice, but you only sell a couple a month if you're lucky, you know? And these things I can sell.
I've yet to sell a $400 bowl.
You have yet to? Well,
Yeah, I haven't charged that much for one yet.
Yeah. Well, that carved one might get up there.
Yeah, my wife and I thought that'd be 300 if I finished it. I don't know. I'm not a league member, John. So if I ever get juried, then my price would probably double. But in the meantime,
Not really, because a bowl's a bowl. If it's a good bowl, it's worth the same amount. People don't know. People don't care if you're a jury member or not. If they like it, they're going to buy it.
Ron, I think you'll find that if you put a higher price on your bowl, people will look at it as being more valuable and be more willing to pay for it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
no, maybe so. Maybe so.
Use the old Seagram whiskey technique. They couldn't sell their product in the United States, so they doubled the price, moved it up on a higher shelf in the liquor stores, and they sold gangbusters.
Yeah, it's like Hazardous ice cream.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found that the birdhouses that I make, I really am controlled by the size of the wood because I'm using, you know, natural bark wood. And so a lot of that varies in shape, but the same pattern is a standard, like setting up a standard, you know, they all have the same diameter holes drilled in them for the bird hole and the perch. And I do have a set of Forstner bits to hollow them out so that they all have about the same wall thickness, regardless of how big they are in diameter. But I keep them within probably 3/4 of an inch of a standard size in diameter.
Right, right. And then that's production work. That's what it's all about.
Right.
Now, do you batch them when you make them, or do you make
Oh,
them?
yes. Yeah, I try to make them a dozen at a time.
Right, right. It's a whole lot easier. You set up for drilling, you drill them all, and you know, it's a step-by-step process. Yeah.
And I use 2 lathes. I use one for turning. I'll do all the tenons at one time, and then I'll do all the boring at one time, and then I'll do all the tops at a different time, and I custom fit the top to the house. Sometimes vice versa.
Right, right, right. And that's what it's all about. It's maximum efficiency.
Right.
You know, it's us getting older now. The longer you stand, the more your back hurts. You know, I want to get them done. I used to be able to do 10 or 12 in a day. This is back in those early picture days. But at the time, I'd just gone through a divorce, and this was 97. And I'd totally immersed myself in a wood turning for a couple of years. I was pumping out 48 of these things a month, selling them to the stores. But I could do 10, 12 a day. Now I do 3 or 4 a day, and I'm done. You know, I can't keep doing it like that. So, you know, if I make 6 or 8 to drop off to the store every month, that's, you know, it's only a couple of days work.
How
So
do you sell them,
do.
John?
Pardon me?
Yeah, how do you go to market with them?
I just sell them at the league stores. I don't do craft fairs or anything anymore. And that's talking about that. I'd like to, one of my talking points here is, you know, when you first start out at these things, you can do craft fairs and see what works and what doesn't work. I know, Jim, you do the craft fairs with your birdhouses and those little needle boxes that you make and stuff like that. So you know what works, you know?
Right.
If you make a whole bunch of stuff and then go try and sell it in a craft fair that's untried, you might be wasting your time, you know? So before you get into a production mode thing, make sure it's going to be a good seller and make sure that you've got the process, you get all the tools and everything you need, and make it worth your while. You know?
It's nice to go to the same craft fair year after year because people come expecting to find something similar. They will ask what's new, and you always want to have something new and different. Yeah. Exactly. But a variation on the theme because they'll always buy the standard.
Right. Yeah, so you understand because you've been doing it, and hopefully the people that are thinking about maybe doing it, you know, these are the points that I want to make sure that we talk about tonight, and that you know, get some insight to.
What comes first? You figure out the price first, and then try to make your method to meet the price?
The price for me hasn't changed much. I just raised the prices last year because of inflation. And the main reason is because the supplier where I used to get these bottles from, you know, these little bottles here, changed. I was buying them from Craft Supply back in the 90s. I was buying them by the gross. That's the only way you could get them. They were crystal, made in Australia. Every one was nearly identical. It was really great for this kind of work. They stopped, that was sold through Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. Lamplight Farms, I believe they were titled. But they came from Australia. They were beautiful lamps. When they went out of business or actually stopped selling them here in the US for whatever reason, I started buying from Craft Supply. And this was at least since I've been here, so at least since 2010 or so. I was buying from Craft Supply. Over the years, they changed and the quality got really crap. I mean, you know, the size difference, they were bent, twisted. It was really annoying because every bottle that you had to fit into a different size hole. Can we go back to the top, please? So that's why I made this jig here. I've got 1.5, 1 9/16, and 40 millimeter holes. The easy way to do it is if you buy quality bottles, stick it in the hole, make sure it fits. See, that one's a little bit tight in there. It drops right into the 40 millimeter. So I know that I got to make all my holes in a batch, a given batch, at the 40 millimeters. I've got, I don't know how many boxes you see up there. There's probably, I don't know, a dozen boxes of these things up there. 5 to a box. So what I do is before I'm doing a batch, I'll size them all. You can get out your micrometer and measure them, but hey, that's a whole lot easier, you know? So make yourself a little jig or template like this to make sure that your store-bought parts are going to work. Like I say, I was buying them from Craft Supply, but when they started getting ugly, I was just getting very frustrated with them, you know? I said, this isn't worth it. Rockler also sells them. And again, the quality and the shape of those I don't like because they have a big bulb up on top. And when you drop it into a lamp, it kind of sticks out funny. You know, I don't like that. I like them to be, I like it to be, that line right there is critical to me. That's how they fit. I don't like it sticking up like that. I don't like it too low. I like it right there at that line. Again, it's kind of a quality issue, you know? I want to make it the best that I can. So the ones that I'm buying now are these here. They're 3 times the price of Craft Supply, but they're worth it because they're very consistent. They'll vary up to maybe 10 thousandths. But that's not bad because they're all going to fit in the 40 millimeter hole. I've got a little bit of play, but when I sand the piece, it's going to open up even more. These really haven't been sanded too much, but you see there's some wiggle room. And why that's important is because these are made of wood during the season. They're going to expand and contract. If you've got a bottle with flammable oil in there, you want to have room to make sure that the wood doesn't shrink and squeeze and break the bottle and have oil and make a mess, you know? So you want to make sure there's a little bit of wiggle room. But my whole point about this is this jig here is very important. If you're using store-bought parts, you want to make sure that you're getting consistent quality. That's also going to affect your final product too. You know, ugly bottles, ugly piece when you're done too, you know? Buy the best you can.
Hey, John, what's the brand name on those lamps? The image is reversed. So we can read it.
Firefly. Firefly.
Firefly. Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's a place down in Sarasota, Florida. I've actually got a wholesale license for these because I can get it a whole lot cheaper. You know, I buy in bulk, and I applied for the license, and they gave me a license. I could sell these on Amazon if I wanted to. I'm not going to. It's only for my purpose. But if you're gonna consider doing production work, talk to the supplier of your consumables and see if you can get a wholesale price on it. And how many do you got to buy? Is it worth it? I buy them for less than half the price they sell them for online, and that's a big difference. But again, they're still much more expensive than the ones they sell at Craft Supply and Rockler, which are crap. So depends on how nice of pieces you want to make, you know. Choose your stuff wisely, I guess, is my point I'm trying to make.
I put that in the chat if anybody needs to look at it.
Say again?
I put the name in the chat.
Oh, okay, okay, cool. Okay, outsource material use. Okay, next step, I guess I'm going to get to how I do these blanks here. I'm just going to go through it as to identify the process that I do. Obviously, your thesis for whatever you're making, you're going to have a process. First things, you guys, I showed the picture of all the blanks sitting on the shelf before, right? Those are all been up there for a couple of years minimum. They're all dried. Everything on that shelf is dried, ready to turn. The other stuff's out in the shed or outside. So I can pick down any one of them and go to town. The first thing I do is I'll take a rough blank. Take a rough blank. That's about 5 3/8 diameter. Keep in mind my finish size is going to be 5 1/4. So it gives me a little bit of room. So I'm going to mount them on a waste block. I have a little bit of wiggle room. It's very hard to get it perfect, you know. the first thing I do is mount the waste block down there and I glue it on. For years, I used to use hot melt glue, but I'm using CA now. It stinks. It's, I don't like the smell of it at all. It kind of burns my nose sometimes, but it's a whole lot quicker and more efficient. And there's no cleanup involved. The hot melt glue, you got to scrape it off your tools and stuff because of the heat generated when you part this thing off, melts the glue again. It just gets sticky and nasty. So I started using hot melt glue or CA glue, 3-4 years ago at least. And
John, are you using medium?
I use medium, yeah.
Have you heard of Glue Boost?
Yeah, I use that stuff on pens and stuff, yeah.
Okay, because
I like it.
they're
A lot less odor, but it's a little bit flexible. The one I use is Satellite City. I can buy it at Woodcraft. And it's pretty rigid, you know, there's no give to it. The Glue Boost does have a little bit of give. And if you guys make pens and use a Glue Boost finish, you can feel it kind of rubbery. You make a lot of pens. Do you use Glue Boost?
I don't use glue. I use Mercury Flex. Same idea.
Okay, same idea. Does it have any give to it?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, some won't crack.
Yeah. The Satellite City has a lot of tensile strength, but no shear strength. You know, you can, when this thing is mounted up, you can bang this thing and shear it off pretty easy. But you're not worried about that as long as you don't get a catch. If you get a catch, hey, all bets are off no matter what you got it on anyway, you know? But what I do is, you can see they're all cut pretty round. This is right off the bandsaw here. That's not turned yet. Again, I use my template to cut them out and I try and, okay, yeah, you can still see the line on there. Cut just outside of the line, as close as I can. It just makes it simpler when you're roughing it out. 2 passes later, I'm here. Everything is clean. There's no ugliness in it anywhere. So it makes it quick and simple is the point I'm trying to make here. So this is the first step. After the rough blank is on, the first thing I do is I true it this way, drill my hole, and I make all these reference lines in it. You can see the one down on the bottom there. That's the top of my bottle. So can you see that? Yeah, there it is. So when I'm turning, I don't have to constantly measure and measure and measure. I turn to that line and I know I'm there.
What do you do? You have a dimple in there?
Yeah, there's just a little dimple. Okay. I got some cool bits in the middle. Oh.
John, what are you using to get a square bottom hole?
That's just going to show us.
That's what I'm going to show you.
Okay.
Well, let me take it out of here. Another cool trick. You ever got your elbow stuck on the end of the tailstock? That'll keep you from poking holes in your shirt. That's what it's on there for. It's a fruit bit, carbide tipped. This one's a 40 millimeter. I've got the same in 9/16, or 1 9/16 and 1.5. Carbide tipped. I've had that 1.5 because all the old bottles from Craft Supply and all were 1.5 inch diameter, or 1.5 inch diameter would fit in it, I should say. So I made a 1.5 inch diameter hole and the bottles would fit. I had the same bit since the 90s. Carbide. It still worked pretty well. So
What is?
Go ahead.
What is the bit again, John? Because it doesn't have a point in the tip.
Yeah, it does.
It's got a very small point.
Oh, okay.
You can't see it in the wood.
You can, yeah, you can. There's a little dimple in there.
Oh.
Oh, okay, there it is.
Yeah,
okay.
but it's not bad. I mean,
Is
a
it?
little bit of figure and it disappears, you know?
It's
It
not
is
a
there.
standard. It's not a standard Forstner, is it, John?
It is. It's a Frood one, Frood carbide.
Fruit.
Yeah. They're expensive, but I think it's worth it. You know, you buy those woodcraft bits and you make 10 of them and they're ugly already, you know. It's don't waste your money. This thing I think was like, I don't know, 60, 70 bucks, but it's worth it. I'll have this for years and years and years. And then you can sharpen it if you want to. I haven't had a need to sharpen it yet, so. And I've got, like I said, I got 3 different sizes. But with these new bottles here, they're all very consistent, so everything is 40 millimeter for me now.
Hey, John, is the bit sitting inside of a holder that's inside the chuck?
Yeah. Yeah, this is a 40 millimeter bit. They have a 30, 35 or 36, and a 40 millimeter are made specifically for blind hinges or inset hinges on cabinet doors. The reason I have the extension on it is because the bit's very short. When you drill in the back of your door to put the hinge in, you only have to go the depth of the bit.
Yeah.
I'm going in 1.5 inches exactly, and there's not enough room. I run up against the chuck, or real close to it. So I got this little extension here that works great. This line here is right at 1.5 inches. So when I drill in, I don't have to measure nothing. I drill till that's perfectly flush. Get one that's sanded here. And I don't know if you can get it straight. There we go. You see, the edge of that little collar is perfectly on the face there. So I know that I'm bottomed out. What I'm trying to do is eliminate as much measuring, as much variables that I can in the whole process.
Yeah, if I were doing that, I'd make a positive stop that, you know, whatever.
Well, you could, but then you can, but then the chips don't eject because the stop is in the way. Let me show you one other thing you can do. What is that? I think it's still working. Yes, not use it. There's another way you can do it. This is my 1.5 inch bit. It's just an electrical
wire tie.
Zip tie, yeah, zip tie thing. When it hits that edge, it's home. Because if you have a big stop block, the chips can't eject, you know. And this one here, well, none of these, it's sticking out because the new bottles I'm using now are about 1/4 inch shorter than the ones from Craft Supplies. So that's why I have one here to demo for you. But obviously, when this thing hits the face, you're there. You know,
okay.
It looks pretty good. Okay, so yeah, so we get into my process here on how I do it. And you can apply these same techniques to anything that you're going to do in a production mode. What I do is I make all these reference marks. I showed you the one for the bottle already. Can you see the line on the top here? That's going to be going to match up with my radius. This is a 3/4 inch radius that I put on here. You can do, obviously, freehand, but each one's going to be off a little bit. The more that you can standardize what you're making, the closer they're going to be one to the next. So what I do is take a generic ruler, 3/4 inches wide, put it on the edge, make a little mark, draw a circle all the way around. I do likewise on this side over here, 3/4 inch. And then this bottom line down here is my total depth. Each one I make is going to be 2 1/8 inches high when it's finished. So this line down here is going to be at 2 1/8. This line down here. And it gives me good reference points when I'm turning this thing. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hollow out this part here. This part here. You see that it's down just above the line. Because when you sand, you lose about maybe a 32nd. Again, I try and precision these things the best I can so that I get a nice fit over here. So I'm going to come from this line down to this line as my first cut. After that one, I'm going to make this cut from here to here. And if, let's see if I can get a shot here. If you look at it, it's pretty darn close to a perfect circle. Tom, take a look. What do you think?
Really close.
It's pretty close. It's not going to be perfect, but naked eye, you're probably not going to see it. From there, what I do is, it's this one. A lot of blanks, sometimes you can have little checks, little, knot holes, little bug holes, things like that. I'll go ahead and fill those and then sand them back and make sure everything's good before I go on any further. The reason I do that now is because if I fill them and if they're not filled again, I'm going to have to sand back a little bit more and then it's going to change my parameters. So I'll do everything from here to here. I'll fill all the bug holes. As you can see, this one's got quite a few bug holes in it. Again, this is going to be going in the garbage can when I'm done probably. But
just filling them with CA glue?
just CA, yeah. Sometimes if they're big, you can mix it up with sawdust. I've got a collection of sawdust, all different kinds. And
You must import that sawdust from other shops because obviously there's no sawdust in your own shop.
I do. I get it from Tom's shop. Yeah, all the basic, the basic woods. Tom and I both use cherry, so I go over and collect his sawdust and stuff. But yeah, it's basically the colors. I've got different colors, and if it's a little bit off, so what, But that's what I would use for
Even got nicely labeled plastic bags. I just shovel mine up from the floor.
Well, yeah, but then, if you do it from the piece you're making, you can do that. That's a good way to do it too. But generally speaking, I use the same woods over and over again. So, I just get it and crush it up and get as small as I can and keep it, just makes it easier. Okay, so now we got the top part done. Next step I'm going to do is from here down to the bottom. Oh, wait, I take that back. After I did this first step, the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the waist down here. I'm going to size it for my depth, or my height, I should say, my height. So I'm going to cut this off here. You can see the difference? Cameras, yeah. Can you guys see that? So I made them all the same height. So that means that this curve coming down to here is what I'm going to make next. If you can see in that, I've left about, I don't know, a 16th, or a little less than an 8th. I'll call it a 16th maybe. High over here. This right here is actually the bottom of the piece, not up here. This is going to be the bottom of the piece. I left that because obviously I have a radius here. I've got to continue that radius when I part it off to finish it. The thing I like about this is you can see I've got complete access to the bottom of this piece when I'm turning it. If you had this thing in a chuck, you're going to have a big chuck in your way and you're not going to be able to get too far down. You'd probably be able to get down about here, maybe. You're not going to be able to get down. The farther down you can get, the more you can see this radius and the more you can perfect it. That's why I've been using these things. I learned from Ellsworth back in the early 90s. He used face plates back then, and I just never stopped. I've got a bunch of chucks. I've probably got, I don't know, 6 or 8 of them. And I just put things in them, I don't use chucks pretty much for turning anything. Well, like I say, my point is, I can see this radius really good, and I can perfect it the best I can. I don't sand. This one here has been sanded because I fixed the glue up on top. Yeah, see, this hasn't been sanded. This is just right off the tool. What grit is that? What grit would you start at?
240, 320.
No, I typically start 180.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you know, I try and get a nice smooth surface. 'Cause I don't
John,
like sanding things into shape. I like cutting them into shape, you know? And I'll cut it and then I'll come back and shear scrape it and then perfect that arc. I leave everything a little bit high and I refine it by shear scraping it in. It's,
John,
yes.
John, at any stage in your developing of your process, did you ever consider grabbing that interior bore with a chuck or an expansion collet and doing the bottom as a continuous surface?
Yes.
Ah,
I'm getting there.
okay.
Yep. Good question though, yeah. Back here, yeah, I try to get as much as I can this way here, Jim, before I reverse it more. Because I want to make sure that I'm going to be, if I went down about here, that's still quite a bit that I'm going to have to do freehand and try and line up. I try and get it so it's pretty much foolproof, you know? Once I get it down to this shape here, now I sand this piece. I'll sand the top, I'll sand down as far as I can get. Obviously, the last half inch down here isn't going to be perfected, but that's why we reverse it and finish the bottom. That's going to be the next step. And from here, I'll go from usually start about 180, sometimes 150 on some gnarly woods. Now this wood here is kind of funky. It's punky. It's holes. It was a little bit of a challenge, but it still came out pretty smooth. Use sharpen tools often. That's very important. And take slow, easy cuts. You get pretty good results. You know, it's not hard to learn that.
John, can you just review that mount again? I can see where you know, at the very bottom there, you're just going to cut that off with a parting tool, right? At the very bottom of the bowl, you're just going to cut that off with a parting tool and then remount it?
That's my next step.
Okay.
I cut it off with a saw.
All right.
The reason is a parting tool, I've had them fly before. I don't go too small because I don't want to lose it. You know, if I bend a little bit with the saw, it could come off and fall, hit the lathe. Now it's got a nick. Now it goes in the garbage can. You know, I don't mind using a saw and cut them off. So I'm going from here to here, and you can see where I cut it off. I leave enough. You can see that little step is still here, right? Can you see that little step right there?
Yep.
I leave that to make sure that I'm going to have enough to make this arc come all the way across and nice and rounded. One continuous plane. You can use a parting tool if you know if that's what you want to do. Let me show you the tools that I do use for this. Need a bigger table. Simple tools, 1/2-inch bowl gouge with the swept back bevels on it. I'll use this for cutting and shear scraping. Does a really good job. Typically, I only sharpen one time. It's sharp when I first start. I'll do the top here. I'll make this round, and then I'll rough this part of it. I'll go and sharpen again, and then I'll finish cutting this one and then shear scrape. The other one is a very thin parting tool. This is a D-Way. This is, the bottom of it here is 80 thousandths. This is 60 thousandths, so it doesn't bind. So yeah, Elliot, I think it was, yeah, you could part this thing off, but I just prefer doing it with a saw because I have one hand on the piece and I'm sawing with the other hand. The lathe's not spinning, and to me, it's more secure. The other thing I have is a parting tool. I use this parting tool to remove that there. It's the only thing I use it for. And then this one here is a 1-inch scraper. I don't have it finished. But what I do is once I part this thing off, I do have it. Here it is. Here it is. Yeah, once I part this thing off, I got a little ugly there. I put the scraper on here and clean that up and use it again. I'm only losing, you can't see that. You can see the joint here, but I don't think I can see it on camera. I'm losing what, a 30-second maybe? Each time that I part one of these things off.
Yeah.
So the waste block lasts a long time. Again, that's the reason why I make these things 2.5 inch, where I'm only going to use 2 1/8 inch final. You can do it the other way and cut away your waste blocks, but it takes you about 15-20 minutes to set up a new waste block. This way here, if I cut my wood thicker in the beginning, I can make 20-25 pieces on one waste block. Again, it's more efficient. Wood is cheap for me. You know, we all got wood sources everywhere. So I don't mind making blanks thicker than I really need. To me, it's worth it. But basically, 4 tools is all I use to make all these things. It's a simple process. The thing is, I've been doing this quite a while. I'll say it, I'm pretty good at turning with these tools. So it makes it easy. You know, get to know the tools that you're using and practice, practice, practice. If you're efficient with the tool, 1/2-inch bolt gouge, I can make darn near anything. You know, a lot of you guys can too, I know that. So just get efficient with the tools. That's very important. Okay, whoa, sorry. So, okay, so next step is, now it's parted off. The only thing I have to finish up is this part down here now. I've got a chuck with, I guess they call these needle nose jaws. I don't know, but they fit right in there. What I like to do though is I use a piece of cardboard. You can see this one's been used quite a bit. It's time to change it pretty much. So I'll drop this piece of cardboard in here. And what that does is it's got an edge right over here on these chucks. And if you tighten this thing too hard, it's going to leave impressions inside the hole. I don't like that. I like to keep it clean. So by putting this little piece of cardboard in there and a piece of paper towel with a hole. What this does, it keeps from getting shiny spots on your surface over here. If it does move or, you know, a little bit of friction. I'm sure if you guys have done that before, you take it off, you see these shiny spots, and now you got to go chicky by hand, you know. Little piece of paper in there. This is probably on its close to 100th piece right now. It'll last a long time, but it'll stop that shiny spot. So put that in, tighten it up, goes on the lathe, and now I'll finish the bottom here. Pretty efficient, yeah. Once I do turn the bottom, oh, Lori here. Can you see? Once I finish it all off, I write my name in the bottom. I use a vibrating etcher tool thing. And my name is unique. I have an O, 5 letters with an O in the middle. That O is on the direct center of the bottom of the piece. That's just kind of, so it doesn't do funny things, you know? It just works out that way. After that, you go on to finishing. But that's pretty much the steps. Fixtures.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
I use elastic bands for keeping from marring pieces.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Yeah.
I have like 5 different sizes. I don't have any small ones because I don't need them for that, but even when
Yeah.
I'm using wood jaws to clamp on something,
It'll
when
show-
it's
still
near
have
the end, I
shining
use
back.
elastics.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. Yeah.
John, what do
Yeah,
you
tell
use?
us.
John, what do you use for finishing?
Okay, that's the next step in the process here. I think I covered everything. I think so.
You do any templates or anything for doing the curves, or those all by, just by eye?
It's by eye. After you make thousands of them, you kind of got the feel for it, you know? But again, by putting these reference lines on, you're breaking this one arc into two pieces, and it makes it pretty easy, you know? It's not that hard to, I say after you make 100, you get really good at it, you know? Make 1,000, you get really good at it, so. It's just a matter of practice, 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 like anything else. There's some other things before I get into finishing. Yes, some other nitnoid things. You know, back when I first started woodworking and started selling, it was around 1990. You know, I was doing craft fairs and stuff, and these were from my craft fair days. They're mirrors. You know, again, I just made this template and made every one of them the same size. It really makes things a lot easier. So no matter what you're making, whether you're turning, you know, flat work, whatever, make templates and stuff, and it speeds up the process and makes for more consistency. And it makes it quicker and easier and a better product in the end. And that's kind of what we all strive for, is make the best that we can, right? These are all tools to help you get there. One other little widget thing here is this thing. All this is a cutting jig. Sometimes you get wood, and I've got a lot of blanks over there that are much thicker that I make smaller meckies and things out of. If I want to decide that I want to make a lamp out of it, what this does is it's on the bandsaw like that. I can hold it and it keeps it from spinning. As you guys know, if you try and cut something round, you could be sketchy. You know, the blade likes to catch and spin it around on you. This thing works pretty good. Put that this side up against your fence. You got your hand here, and you push it through, and it won't spin. It's just something pretty neat. You see, it's got a really nice fit in there. Sandpaper on the inside. Just a time saver and safety thing. You know, safety is always first. So, okay, let's get on to finishing next. I'm just going to use these two for examples. Need a bigger table. Any questions on what we covered so far? Silence. I'll take that as no. The next thing is finish. That's what I use for finish. I'd like to use a simple finish. It's just oil and wax. I've been using bush oil pretty much since I moved here. It's got a lot of solids in it. It builds quick. It's easy to repair if you have to, and it gives a nice shine and it lasts a long time. If you guys are making stuff to go in a store, sometimes they're going to be sitting there for a while. And as you know, like if you use a mineral oil or even like a walnut oil that doesn't have much consistency, in about a month, it's going to fade out, right? But sitting in the store and it's all faded finish, like take this one, for instance, this is a couple years old and sitting in the drawer compared to this finish, big difference. Tom can see it with his eyes, you know, you can see the big difference. It's the same finish was on this one, but it's been a couple of years. Obviously, if your thing's there for a couple of years, they're going to call you and say, hey, come get it. It's not going to sell. But, you know, my point is you want a finish that's going to be durable. And for the customer that buys it, you want them to have a good finish and not come back in 6 months and say, hey, you know, it all faded out and not be happy, you know? So oil finish with wax on it will last a long, long time.
Do you put more than one coat on?
I do, yeah. Typically, I'll put minimum 3 coats.
And how much time between?
Until I can't smell it. That's variable, you know, on humidity and all that kind of stuff. I just finished these up this morning. In fact, I just polished these group of cherries here. They're all the exact same because the cherry ones I sell online at the 2 stores that I'm dealing with now. And they got to be fairly consistent. So customers, when they see the picture online, they're not getting something, you know, you advertise this and you send them this. They're not going to be happy, you know? You want to have the picture look similar to what's online. The 4 of them I've got here, the time you saw them, they're all pretty consistent, right? They're all cut from the same board. Obviously, no 2 are ever going to be identical, but they're all pretty consistent. So if you have this picture up online, the customer sees it, clicks on it, they're not gonna notice the difference, you know. For the ones that go in the store, that's different. You make whatever. I've been getting kind of creative lately, doing a lot of dye work, experimenting, and I've got a lot of ash. In fact, I've got more ash outside there. I got to get cut up before winter. And dyes or ashes rather is a great wood to play with dyes with. You know, it does a lot of cool things. I like to quarter saw, so I get these nice lines in it. I don't know if you can see that. This thing looks a little bit blurry. Is there a reason for that?
And what kind of wax do you use?
It's going to zoom in. Let me go forward. Maybe it's zoom it in. Yeah, zoom it in. Okay. Yeah, that's better. That's good. Can you see that better now?
Yeah, that's great.
And it's got a nice shiny finish on it. Yeah, and it'll stay like this for a long time. Yeah, the oil I use is bush oil from Woodcraft. I buy it in small cans. They sell, I guess this is a pint. They have a quart, a half gallon, I think, and maybe it is a gallon, another big can. I like to buy the small cans because I like it to be fresh. I'll use this thing up in 2 months max. It'll be used up. But if you buy the big ones, once you know the oil starts getting down in here, you get a bunch of air in there, it gets gelled and it gets thick and the consistency changes. I just like to keep my finish fresh. It's cheaper if you buy it in large quantities, but to me, it's a trade-off.
Have you ever used the bags?
Oh, you mean to store the oil in? I used to, yeah. I still got a couple in the closet there, but I just find buy a small can and, you know, 1 or 2 months, it's good. You know, I don't even have to worry about it. I don't have to mess with it, you know? Yeah, that's about all I can say. I've used other oils in the past. Flecto used to make a really good one, but I haven't been able to find it since I moved here. And that was a long time ago already. 2008, I moved here. Wow, that's 14 years I've been here. Wow. I guess I'm in New Hampshire right now. But yeah, I like this bush oil. It says it's got a lot of solids in it. It's heavy. The can is heavy and it builds quick. How do you apply it? Okay, I apply it by pouring it into that to dispense it. I lay out plastic grocery bags on my workbench right here. I lay the things on a, like, let me go get one. Hold on. Hannaford's good for something. I just set them up like this. Dump some oil in here. Dip it in, and wipe it on. Heavy, I don't care. I'm not trying to save oil. I put it on heavy. I'll let it soak for at least 15 minutes, but I'll check it in between especially like cherry on this end grain, it's gonna soak in pretty quick. So I'll let it sit for about 5 minutes, come back, check it. I wear gloves too, by the way. Put some more on the dry spots and let it soak wet for at least 15 minutes. Sometimes you got to put a lot of oil. With this maple, this kind of, I wouldn't call it punky, but it's soft and it soaks up a lot of oil. So you got to sit there and, keep an eye on it. Just keep it wet is the point. I'll put on a coat and let it dry for about 15 minutes. And then I wipe off the excess. I got this little homemade jig here that I'll sit them on and dry. And I'll leave it on my workbench overnight. I'll come down a couple times in the next few hours after I'm done and wipe off any that weeps out. This cherry's got these little sop pockets in it, and sometimes the finish will weep out of oddities, So you don't want it to dry on there because then you got to sand it off. So I just, wipe it down with a paper towel and make sure it doesn't weep. Usually after about a half hour, it doesn't weep anymore when it all soaks in. So I'll let this sit for minimum 2 days. Usually it's 3 to 4 days. Now, it smells like wax because I waxed them this morning, but this one won't have any smell. But the way I can tell that it's dry is I'll smell it. If I can't smell the oil, I'll put on the next coat. And this one here has 3 coats on this batch of cherries. Sometimes you got to put on more. Usually 3 coats is pretty good though. The first will be kind of dull. The second one you start seeing the gloss. The third one you see more gloss or about the same. And once I stop seeing a change from the previous coat, I'll stop. No sense putting 4 or 5 coats. There's no point in it. It's not going to change the finish any.
John, do you steel wool in between coats at all?
I do, Jim. Yeah, sometimes. Not every time, but sometimes the end grain will raise, even though it's not water. And I do sand. When I sand these things, I sand both directions. That's important. I should have brought that up before. I sand pretty much everything I make in both directions on the lathe, just for that reason, to get the grain that, might lay down. It's very important to get it once you get up to 400, 600 to do that, that very fine grain. But this thing feels like a baby's butt. I mean, it's really smooth, and that's important. You don't want to be all funky, So that's it. Then after it dries for, 3 or 4 days after the last coat, I'll wax it. And the wax that I use is Liberon. It's an English fine wax. I've been using this stuff since I can remember. I think it's the best wax out there. You got a Brie wax is another pretty good one, but I like this one. It goes on easier and comes off easier.
It's backward. Could you?
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm looking at it a different angle here. There you go.
Thank you. The wording is backward.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's.
It looks right here.
Tom?
Everything you're showing gives us a mirror image, just so you'll know that with your camera.
Yeah, there's a setting on Zoom, Tom, to change to go reverse. There
you go.
Now it's backwards when I'm looking at it. Okay, that's cool, as long as you guys can see it. So everything you guys have been watching has been backwards then?
Yes.
Yep.
Wow, how come you never said nothing?
Well, we knew that he always started with a dirty floor.
Oh, okay, that explains everything then, okay. Anyway, yeah, one is a neutral and one is a walnut. So I used the neutral, obviously, on most woods. It's dark wood like walnut, wenge, or something like that. I'll use the walnut wax. And I'll put 2 or 3 coats of this on too, light coats. 3 light coats is better than 1 heavy coat. One that gets kind of smeary, when you try and buff it off.
Right.
What do you use to buff it with?
An old white towel, terry cloth towel, and an old white
Yeah, right.
Yeah, by hand. I don't have a buffing wheel. I guess it would be cool if I did, but I don't. So, but it comes off pretty easy. It's not an issue. And that's it. The next thing I do is when they're all finished, I got a batch, like I say, going to the store tomorrow. I make them look pretty by putting this little tag on it.
Nice.
It identifies the wood that it is.
Nice touch.
Yeah, that just identifies the wood, and then each one comes with this flyer from Firefly. I don't know if you can see it. It's just a flyer. It's directions. It tells you what kind of oil to use, how to use it, how to fill the bottle, blah, blah, blah. Safety warnings and all that. I used to have a double-sided, I used to have a double, like little foldy thing with a whole bunch of words on here. Fill the bottle 2/3 full of oil, set the wick low, all that kind of stuff. But since I started using these Firefly ones, they provided them to me. I've got, hundreds of them. So when it goes to the store, this and a funnel goes with each lamp. The store keeps these behind the counter. When a customer buys it, they provide that with the piece. It's more professional looking, And then they can also order the oil. I don't sell oil with these, but by giving them this flyer here, they can order the oil. And it just helps Firefly, the business Firefly, and makes me look good in their eyes, and kind of works out for everybody,
John, do you provide a marketing box for these?
You mean a container box that they?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
For the
These
retail
just sit on the
box.
shelf just like this. No.
Okay.
No, I bring them in all wrapped up in paper, and I got a big plastic box I carry them in, and unfold them and give it to them, and now it's theirs.
Right.
They break it, they pay it, But I've had very little, if any, problems. People that I work with, they're very good. They're all professionals.
Just a tip for the other people who may be selling at craft fairs. If you do provide a box or a bag, the customers go crazy over that.
Yeah, it's a good touch. Yeah.
I had some little small folding bags that I prepared by taking off the labels and the half price sale labels and things, and everybody wanted one of the bags so they could show off to. It was a unique little bag that I put the birdhouses and other things in, and they just loved it.
Yeah, very nice touch. Yeah, yeah. And so, when are you going to sign up for the league? When are you going to go jury?
Oh, when I get a little bit older, I guess, John.
Okay. I know you young guys, it's pretty intimidating, isn't it? I know you've been doing this a long time, and if you get good at something, it sells, really. It sells pretty easy. Tim, you know that. You've been in the league a whole lot longer than me, right? And I'm sure you got your things that you sell, and you know it's going to sell every month. So I just call it mailbox money, I like it. But I think I covered pretty much everything. Like I say, I was trying to, I'm talking about lamps because that's what I make. But a lot of these concepts, tools, equipments, ideas, you could use on whatever you make. It's the whole thing is make it easier, make it simpler on yourself to make them and make a better product. That's the bottom line.
Super presentation, John. Thank you. Really good.
Yeah,
thanks. Well, I hope you can all go out to your lathe and come up with a little tchotchke thing to sell and get mailbox money.
Very good, John.
Yes,
Thank you.
Excellent job, John. Very inspirational.
Thank you, John.
Is that? Can you guys read that now, or is it backwards?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's fine now.
Great, thanks.
Okay, I found the sliding.
That's good. Yeah.
Excellent information, John.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I hope you could use it. And next time we all meet in person, we're going to have a bring in your production piece meeting. Yeah. Yeah. Remember we used to do the voting and all that stuff? We need to do that.
We need to do that. We got If anyone has any leads on somewhere we could be